Welcome back to the Magic Society. My name is Kaylina and this is my channel, and today we are doing a book review. So let's get started. Okay, so it's been a hot minute since I've read anything. I've just, for some reason, not been overly inspired to read. I don't know why. It's just, I haven't been, and I feel like that's been kind of the fever going around with other booktubers as well. Like every time I watch some of the other people that I follow, they're like, yeah, I just haven't read a whole lot lately. And that is kind of how I'm feeling. So I'm actually been like forcing myself every day to at least do like 45 minutes of reading of some sort so that I can catch up on some of these book readings, because I have a stack huge tall of books that I have not read that I want to read. I just, I keep collecting them and then they just keep sitting in my chest or on a bookshelf. So, which is not what a book is intended to do. So, the book I finally finished reading was Curse of the Night Witch by Aster. Now, I previously did a review on Lightlark that she wrote and praised that one to high heaven because I absolutely adored that book. I loved it. It's still probably my favorite book that I've read even as of late, and that was like months and months and months ago when I read it. In fact, I feel like it was almost wintertime of like last year that I read that book. And loved it, gave it very high reviews. I think I gave it a 5 out of 5. I loved it so much. And honestly, nothing has like met that level as of late out of the other books that I've read, and I've given little reviews over those that I've read lately. They're sitting over here. That's why I'm looking over here. But I also found out that Nightbane, which is the second book to Lightlark, is going to be released on November 7th, I think? Yes, November 7th. So I am beyond excited about that because I love Lightlark and I have very, very high hopes for the second book. But we're not talking about Lightlark today. You can go check out that review if you want to hear about that book. But today we're reviewing Curse of the Night Witch, which is a YA novel. It follows these three kids. Tor is one of the kiddos, and they're all given emblems when they are born, and there's lots of different kinds of emblems that give them each different powers. So Tor is born with a leadership emblem, and he doesn't like his emblem for whatever reason. He just doesn't want to be a leader. He wanted a different one. So on Eve, which is an event every year, they get to make wishes, and if you're lucky, your wish gets granted. However, Tor wakes up the next morning and he has a different emblem on his arm, and turns out it's a curse. And the curse makes it so that his lifeline is shortened. And so he has to find this night witch, which is supposedly the person who cursed him, and get her to reverse the curse. And in the process, two of his other friends, well, one's a friend, one is kind of more of a girl that gets tossed into the mix with them, end up touching his eye and therefore getting cursed as well. So all three of them work together to go on this mission to go save themselves from dying in like a couple days. So that's long story short. And it's a very creative book. I will say right off the bat, it kind of combines two different stories that are, in my opinion, your characters feel very much kind of like the Harry Potter trio in a way. You have our girl, Melda, who is very smart. She's very rule following, she's sophisticated. You have Tor, who almost kind of feels like Harry in a way. And then you have, oh my gosh, what is the third dude's name? Oh my gosh, I totally blanked. I read this whole book and I literally just blanked out. Engel. Sorry. No wonder I didn't know it. It's kind of an unusual name. E-N-G-L-E. Engel, I think. So yeah, sorry. Long pause there. And he kind of feels like a Ron in a way. But then the story itself has a very Percy Jackson kind of feel to it. And I feel like you could say that, I guess, maybe for a lot of YA, like adventure books, like adventure fantasy books. They all kind of follow a very similar setup. There's something they've got to go do. They all go on this adventure and they run into monsters and blah, 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 blah. So it kind of feels similar to a Percy Jackson storyline with the characters of the Harry Potter trio. That's the best I can describe it. Obviously it stands on its own, like it's not word for word, you know, like those other two, but I will say that the read felt like Percy Jackson away, minus a lot of the humor. Because obviously Rick Riordan, his strong suit is the humor that he puts into all of his books. I mean, he goes as far as putting titles that are freaking funny. So, and I remember just adoring Percy Jackson when I was in, you know, middle school, and even probably into high school, I was still reading those books. So loved Percy Jackson. I loved Heroes of Olympus, loved both of those series. This one had that flow minus the humor. Humor's not her strong suit, but that's okay because she makes up for it in a lot of other different ways. So as far as characters go, that's what I kind of have to say about the characters. I also didn't feel, and it's hard because I'm comparing it to Lightlark because that was the first book I ever read by her, and that was just like outstanding. And I was so invested in the characters in that book, and I really started falling in love with those characters. This book, I wasn't quite as invested with our characters. Like, I wanted to see them succeed, but their characteristics, mannerisms, I don't feel like we're quite as developed as the characters in Lightlark are. And that could just be because it's a YA novel. But like, when I read Percy Jackson, I was highly invested in all of those characters. Like, you really got to know them. And I know this is the first book in the series, so it could also be that as well. But I wasn't super invested in what they were doing. Like, the story is interesting. It's a good read. It's not boring. But you have to be kind of hooked by the characters to want to really, really keep reading. And this one was... And it could be my mindset right now too, because I've just not been in a super ready mood. But there wasn't a particular character where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm really invested in this character. I really need to know what's going to happen to them. And like I said, it could just be because it's the first book in the series and we're building up to it, and we'll obviously get to know these characters more as we go on. But the story didn't really allow you to get a lot of background on any of them, or a lot of unique characteristics of each of them, or what really molds a character into a full character. But that was just my personal opinion. And like I said, in Lightlark, she nailed it, like so nailed it. So I'm comparing everything to that, which is a high bar to set because Lightlark, was just so good in my opinion. The plot was good. It was an easy flow. There wasn't any really unnecessary fluff. You kind of just went from scene to scene to scene. Something that I really liked, that I would say is unique or creative, is that she added in like fairy tales from her heritage, which I think was super cool. So I think in the back of the book, she said that, yes, Latin American myths that her Colombian grandmother had told her, which I think is so cool. Like adding in that culture with the mythology and the legends, like that was really neat. And she has like just little snippets of like a fairy tale And that's like where the characters had to go next to find where they were going. So that was really kind of a neat, like unique thing that I haven't seen done in other stories. So that was definitely cool. And her world building is really on point. Like she just knows how to do just the perfect amount of description to where your mind still can create the world she's building, but at the same time gives you enough information that you can, you can picture it in your head, but then add your own flair to it as well. So she does that extremely well. Like her world building, there are some scenes in this book that I was like, yes, I can totally picture it, and it just like, you can totally see it in your mind's eye. And I love a good book that can do that because I'm a very visual person, and so leaving enough detail to fill in the blanks, but yet giving you enough to work with, she does really well with that. So definitely did a good job on world building. Well developed. Her, like I said, the unique and creative elements of the mythology was really interesting. Yeah, so overall I would give this probably like a 3.5, 3.7 out of 5 stars. It's just, like I keep saying, Light Lark set the bar so high, and I'm so thrilled to find out it's coming out in just like a couple weeks, because I will be one of the first people to get it. I so highly praise this, and this was a good book. I mean, I will definitely read the second one. I'm interested to know where she's gonna go with this from here, because the end ended interesting and not quite what I was expecting. So it'll be interesting to see where she goes with it and what's gonna happen to our characters. And the way it ended, like I understand, like from her point of view, like she meant to have what happened as this kind of, it's not supposed to be a great thing, but at the same time I'm like, there wasn't quite the conviction, and probably just because we don't have like a ton of background information on what's happened to the other people that this happened to one of the main characters. I know I'm babbling, and without reading it you have no idea what I'm talking about, but like it's supposed to be bad, but it's not 100% conveyed like, oh my god, this is the worst thing that could have happened to him. And if that makes any sense, like I didn't quite get the gut punch that, you know, you sometimes get when something bad happens to a character and it almost feels like you're like hurting for them. I didn't quite get that reaction with this. But I'm still very interested in reading the second book. It's a good book. It has a nice flow. It reads pretty fast. I have just high praise for Aster. I think she's a very talented author, and I really enjoy her books. So I will 100% continue to read them, and definitely put this on your book list if you're just looking for this a read that it feels like Percy Jackson in a way and is very nostalgic to that in a way, but also has its own feel and own creativity to it. So that is my book review. Probably 3.5, 3.7 stars. We'll pick up the second one eventually at some point. I need to get through some of these other books that I have first before I start buying any new books, but I will definitely be reading them, and I will definitely be getting Nightbane on November 7th as well. So also one more point that I forgot to add on is that in an attempt to not have 5 bazillion million books on my bookshelf, because I know some people like really love to have the huge collection and like admire their books for, you know, centuries to come. It's actually quite overwhelming for me to have that many books, because I mean, it really takes like a really, really good book for me to actually think that I'm going to potentially pick it up for a second time. And there's been very few books that have, you know, done that for me. and that would be Harry Potter, obviously, Percy Jackson series, and Stalking Jack the Ripper, which I really enjoyed, and then Light Arc has been added to that collection, and I'm probably missing a couple other series as well. I just can't think of them off the top of my head, and they're all stored away for whenever I decide to move. So yeah, so my criteria that I'm setting up is whether or not I would actually pick it up and read it again. And if the answer is no, we are giving it to someone else who can read it, or a library or something. Put it to good use, but it will not be just sitting away on my bookshelf, because it's not a good place for it. Because if I'm not going to pick it up again, it might as well be given to someone who will read it for the first time. So yeah. So for the Curse of the Night Witch, I think I'm going to have to wait until I read the second book to see if I will be keeping it on my shelf or not. If I really love the second book, I might keep the series. If not, it probably will be on the no pile. But Lightlark, for sure, absolutely will be staying on my bookshelf, because I will definitely probably pick that book up again at some point. So that is all I've got. Oh, also, it's not all I've got. One more piece of information. So I've mentioned before on my channel that I am a writer myself, but I have never actually put out any of the stuff I've written, just because I feel like I'm in a never-ending editing process. But that time is coming to an end, and I tried to do the normal publishing route a while ago, and of course, just it's nearly impossible to, have it traditionally published. And I'm not saying that because I got turned down by some. I'm just saying you have to have an agent anymore, and it's this whole ordeal, this whole process. And honestly, it's just easier to self-publish. And I feel like you can be picked up by a publisher later on if your book ends up being successful. So I am working on doing one last final edit of my one fantasy book that I have written. I also have a sci-fi series that I wrote as well. So I'm working on getting those edited one last time, and then I will be putting mine out. So if anybody is willing to put my books to the test, I would be greatly appreciative. I will let you know when I do put it out. No pressure, obviously. I know, it's a lot to ask to just pick up someone's random book and give it a go. But if in the description it sounds like something you'd be interested in, I'd really love to get some actual opinions from people. Because I love to write, but I also have not had anybody really outside of my family read it. So I would be interested to hear you guys' opinions. So I will let you know when I do eventually finally put that out. I'm determined to get it out by the end of the year. So there's that. That is all. I will see you next time for another video. Stay witchy, stay spooky, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.